Welcome. In this course, we are discussing decarbonization of the building and transport sectors. My name is Natalia Barber, and I'm delighted you decided to join us online and learn more about transportation. I'm an assistant professor at Delft University of Technology, and this week I'll take you on a journey in the domain of transport, energy, and climate. Over the last few weeks, my colleagues have introduced a wide range of topics varying from the basics of climate science and calculation of greenhouse gas emission to efficient building design. If you have taken the previous course in this series, you can probably recall that sea level rise, water shortages, deterioration of ecosystems, among others, are some of the unwanted consequences of climate change. If you're interested to learn more, I highly recommend to go back and listen to lectures by TU Delft professor Cornelis Blok. Because in the past 2 weeks, we have focused strictly on efficient building design, it is now time to shift gears and even further expand the conversation on climate change mitigation. In the upcoming weeks, we will focus on the transportation sector. The topics covered will include aviation, freight, and most importantly, transport in urban areas. The main focus will fall on the passenger transport, and we will explore ways to improve mobility while minimizing carbon footprint. The goal is not only to create opportunities for a more sustainable and clean future, but also improve and innovate ways how we move around. We don't want our cities and communities to look like this and be filled with cars and pollution, but rather like this. In the upcoming videos, we will examine transport sector and emissions by countries and modes, as well as explore different modes and context of their efficiency. We will also look in the future and discuss freight, aviation, and alternative opportunities for fuels such as hydrogen and e-fuels and their potential to support clean transportation. You will learn how to calculate greenhouse gas emissions coming from different transport domains and evaluate different scenarios. So let's get to it. The rapid growth of technology has influenced passenger and freight sectors. The increase in mobility of people and goods has consequently increased the role of transportation as a source of CO2 emissions, pollutants, or noise, and impacted the environment in multiple ways, many of them negative. However, it is worth remembering that transportation sector also offers lots of positive externalities as it can contribute to economic growth, better accessibility, create jobs, or improve equity. But since this lecture is about opportunities for improvement, we will try to identify areas, methods, and measures where a positive change would be welcome. In general, the impacts of transportation sector can be divided into 3 categories: direct impacts, indirect impacts, and cumulative impacts. Direct impacts, those are rather immediate and well-known and studied consequence of transport activities on the environment. In this case, the cause and effect relationship between transportation and the environment is generally clear and well understood. For instance, noise and carbon monoxide emissions are known to have direct harmful effects on the quantities of emissions per vehicle are more or less known. Indirect impacts include secondary effects of transport on environment. They are often a higher and more complex consequence than direct impacts. Furthermore, the relationships between different components are often misunderstood and are more difficult to establish. For example, particles, which are mostly the outcome of incomplete combustion in an internal combustion engine, and the air pollutants associated with the tire materials are linked to respiratory and cardiovascular diseases. But because of the complexity of our environments and the exact thresholds and harmfulness of each component is yet challenging to isolate. The last ones, cumulative impacts, are defined as additive, multiplicative, or synergetic consequences of transport activities. They consider the varied levels of effects of direct and indirect impacts on the ecosystem, which are often unpredictable. Our air has never been this polluted before, and the temperatures were not as high either. In the end, no one really knows where the tipping points are and how different components impact and influence each other. Although different sources report slightly different numbers, most of them confirm that the share of transportation in the global CO2 emission is increasing and classify that share to be around 22% of global CO2 emissions. This share is around 25% for advanced economies such as the United States. Although in theory, we divide transportation impact as direct, indirect, and cumulative, and we also assign a percentage of emissions and contribute it to each country, in reality, that division is not so straightforward. In a great scheme of things, the exact source of the emissions is not as important as the impact they make. We have to remember that we live on one planet, and all the emissions from transportation go to the same atmosphere and will sooner or later impact all geographical locations. Although no one is able to escape the consequences of climate change in the future, everyone has the opportunity to make impact and contribute to lowering these emissions now. Many times, the countries and regions that do not contribute nearly as much to global emissions will suffer the consequences of those emissions the most. This brings us to our next question. Which countries and which transportation sectors contribute the most to the problem? To find out, in the next video, we will be taking a trip around the world and examine transportation trends.